Good afternoon. The American Association for Women in Community Colleges and the Tidewater Consortium would like to welcome you to our event today, which is hosted and supported both by AAWCC and by the, I have to make sure I say the name right because I have to give Rick credit, and by the Tidewater Regional Center for Teaching Excellence, which is our consortium here. We would like to welcome you to our workshop today, Breaking Through the Glass Ceiling, Leadership and Negotiation Skills. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Cheryle Thompson-Stacey, President of Eastern Shore Community College. We welcome you today. I'm Crystal Taylor. I am the President of the AAWCC Hampton Roads Chapter, and I also bring you greetings. We are the first Virginia chapter here, so you got to give us a clap for that one too. And this gives us an opportunity to introduce you to the association as well as hear from Dr. Thompson-Stacey today. But we also want to welcome you to Thomas Nelson Community College, so I welcome you on behalf of Dr. Charles A. Taylor, our president, and we are here today to really fellowship with you, but also to support the organization as well as to support you in your roles that you currently have at the community college, and hope that today you will leave here not just learn about negotiation skills, but also build some relationships. I see people from different organizations, different community colleges here in the area. So when you leave today, make sure you take one phone number with you, new phone number, not an old phone number. Make sure when you leave today that you're able to take the skills and the information from the session today with you to increase, hopefully, our negotiation skills, but as well as to learn about the American Association for Women in Community College organization. We do have a membership table for you on the side if you want some more information. At this time, I will introduce the officers of the Hampton Roads chapter, so when I call your name, if you can please stand. As well, I am also going to ask all the members of the Hampton Roads chapter to stand, because they can also help you to learn more about AAWCC, and also if you are interested in joining the Hampton Roads chapter, we also have membership applications for you. So at this time, I would like for Ms. Sandy Spain. She's already standing. You can wave your hand. She's in the back. Sandy is our president-elect. Dr. Deborah Fontaine is our secretary, and she'll be here shortly. We also have Ms. Maddie Brisbane, who's our treasurer. Maddie is also standing in the back. We have our membership committee co-chairs, Ms. Eileen Schweitzer and Ms. Khadijah Archer. And Khadijah had to run to another meeting, so she'll probably be back and forth today. And I also would like to ask our president-elect, Dr. Deborah Wright, to stand. Did she leave? Oh, there she is. She was the first face that you greeted today as she came in. And also, I would like all members of the Hampton Roads chapter to please stand at this time, including our officers. We have a total of 18 members for the Hampton Roads chapter. We were formed in September of 2007, so I think that's a great increase of our membership since we started about 8 months ago. But without further ado, Dr. Thompson-Stacey will be our keynote speaker today. And she comes to you, and I know that you have some of my colleagues from Eastern Shore here to hear you, and I know that they will enjoy their time here with you today. I thought they were coming to support me because they probably saw my name on the email, but they are here to hear you and also to learn more about their negotiation skills and leadership. But I just want to give you just a quick overview on Dr. Thompson-Stacey's bio is in your program. Again, as I said, she is the president of Eastern Shore Community College. She comes with an administrative career in higher education for 25 years. She began her career at Kent State University in Ohio, where she held a variety of jobs from financial aid officer to the director of academic and student affairs. And from KSU, she went on to Jefferson Community College in Ohio, where she was the Dean of Business, Humanities, and Social Sciences. Dr. Thompson-Stacey was then chosen as the Dean of Business and Technology at Cuyahoga Community College in Ohio, the largest community college in the state of Ohio and one of the largest in the nation. And I want to say we're glad to have you in Virginia. We see that you have spent a lot of time in Ohio, and we are glad to have you here in Virginia. But also in January of 2006, she achieved her career goal of becoming a community college president when she became the president of Eastern Shore Community College. And we welcome her to Virginia. And she has a long list of accolades, but most importantly, one of our members, Ms. Sandy Spain, heard you at a conference. She was very, very impressed and felt that AAWCC would definitely benefit from hearing you today. So we're excited that you're here, and we welcome you. And I will stop talking so you can have your time today. Thank you again for coming. We know that you will enjoy the presentation today. If you have any questions about the organization, again, we have membership information. I've asked all the members to stand so you can ask them later. Make sure you eat the food that's in the back because we don't want to take it back home. And then, again, we hope you get home safely today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. All right, great, because I have this lapel mic. I'm all wired up, so we're ready to go. And when Sandy came and heard me at the Classified Staff Association conference, I very much enjoyed doing that session. And I think part of the reason that it went so well, we had a lot of audience feedback and input. So that's what I'm asking for from you today. I want to hear your examples that you have, that you feel comfortable sharing and talking about what you've learned over the years. I've learned an awful lot. We were chatting a little while ago about getting old, and I said the one good thing, I can honestly say I am smarter today than I've ever been in my life. So that's the only good thing I can think about getting old. But you do become wiser, you learn things, you have a lot of different experiences, and I think sharing them all among everybody is going to be very helpful today. And I will certainly share all the mistakes that I've made over the years, and I've made an awful lot of them. I wish I would have known back then what I know today. I guess we say that all the time, don't we? But I have learned, and I like sharing what I've learned and learning from you too. My dissertation was on the gender salary gap, and that was, gosh, it's probably been about 12 years ago that I got my doctorate. And I've shared a lot of what I learned from the research I did when I was preparing that document at various conferences. I've had some articles published, as a matter of fact, in the American Association of Women in Community Colleges Journal. I've had a couple articles published there. And it makes me feel good to share that, because most of the time once you do your doctorate, nobody ever reads it, and your dissertation, I mean. In fact, my father didn't even make it through mine. He tried to, and he said, "I'm sorry, Cher, I just cannot do it." So to actually get some benefit out of all the time and effort you spend is very nice. I'm going to talk about three different things today. The first I am going to talk about is the gender salary gap, and then some leadership skills, negotiation skills, and maybe some tips on what you might think about doing as you climb your own career ladder. For example, women today still only earn about 70 cents on the dollar for males. The research varies a little bit, 77 cents, you might see 78, 79, but it's still right around there, which hasn't changed much in about the last decade or even the last 20 years. Women of color earn 71 cents per dollar for males. Women represent only about 16% of the Senate seats in Congress, about 18% of the House seats in Congress. Only 10 Fortune 500 companies are run by women. And the United States has no guaranteed medical leave for childbirth, and we trail 168 countries that do. So I don't think the problem is documenting that there's still a lot of work to be done as far as equality of wages and options and opportunities. And we're not going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about how do you address that. And don't worry, I see there's 2 males in here. It's not a male bashing thing, not at all. And there will be things that I think you can learn and apply in your own lives too, and certainly feel free to share. Because for well over a decade, I was quite a bit underpaid compared to my colleagues, my male colleagues. And this was at Kent State University in Kent, Ohio. There were 8 campuses. I was the director of academic and student services at one of the branch campuses, and every campus had the same position. And I found out later that I was making about $17,000 less per year than the next lowest paid person, which all of the other ones were male. But I can honestly say I don't think that was in any way had to do with the fact that I was female or with any way in the fact of discrimination. I really don't. So you might ask, well then what was it? Why were you paid so much less for such a long period of time? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And the problem was me. And I discovered over the years as I've worked in various positions, that is not just me. A lot of other women, and tends to be women, more so than males, did some of the same incorrect actions as I did, which resulted in a gender salary wage gap. And I do invite you to chime in at any time as I'm talking. Just wave your hand and feel free to share, because I'm going to share all my many mistakes, so I want to hear some other mistakes too from others. But if you want to, let's just start it off with, why do you think that women only earn about 77 cents on the dollar compared to males? Just some thoughts.
We have different negotiation skills.
Probably none. No negotiation skills. Poor negotiation skills, absolutely.
Choice of careers.
Choice of careers, we tend to go into the lower paying careers. Is that what you mean? Very true, very true. Education is one, as a matter of fact. That tend to be women dominated, at least at the lower levels. Secretarial work, what are some other? Oh yes, definitely. Nursing, and finally there's some nursing wages are going up, which is very good to see. Very good, that's very true. Yes?
Self-work.
Go ahead and explain.
Well, a lot of women don't recognize the value of the skill and experience in great positions, so if they don't ask for more, they don't get work.
Very good. You settle for it.
Sometimes I think there's not an awareness of the whole politics of it, like that you even could negotiate. You know, sometimes I guess most of us know now, but there was a time in my career I didn't think that it was up to negotiation. I thought what I was offered is what I was offered.
Very good. That's very true. Yes.
And then if your current salary is based on your last one, then it just continues the low progression and you begin at a disadvantage your next one.
Right.
Women sometimes are out of the job market for childbearing and other complementary responsibilities.
Yeah, that's an important point to make, because some of the salary wage gap based on gender does have to do with choices that are made. If you choose to leave the workforce when you have a child, and you may stay out 5-6 years until they enter school, that's a legitimate reason why your earnings wouldn't be as much as they would have been if you stayed in the workforce. So there are some sociological reasons why too. So thank you for making that. Go there and there.
But beyond individual women's choices, there is also a structural setup for this too. And there's implicit bias, unconscious bias, and sometimes conscious bias that is still in effect in the workplace, especially in private companies where the scrutiny is not as great as in public institutions.
As far as scrutiny of
equitable pay equity.
Yes.
I was going to say, as far as childcare goes, even for women who are working, they are often still the primary caregiver, not only to parent, but to children, but to aging parents, and perhaps sometimes their priorities are misconstrued at work.
Excuse me. Can you speak up a little bit back? Okay. Yes.
I think that women, they have to be ready to put on their armor, to fight the good old boys, the Joan of Arc mentality, and a lot of us are not, well, we might feel that we're not made or mentally capable of, charging.
Dealing with conflict is difficult, and that's what you have to do, because you'd be creating conflict once you step forward and ask for certain things. Any other comments?
Well, culturally, the dynamic set it up that the woman's income is a secondary income. If it's secondary, it doesn't need to pay as much.
And I'm not sure if you heard that traditionally women's income has sometimes been looked at as a secondary income and not the primary breadwinner of the family. Okay, some of the things that I have found when I've done my research and also in all of the jobs that I've been in, first of all, the very first thought that was mentioned about not negotiating. So many women accept a job offer on the spot, and some men too. One of the jobs I had at Kent State University was actually chairing all of the search committees that we had. So over the years that I was there, I probably made about 100 job offers to people, various positions, faculty, administration, classified staff. Probably about 60 females, 40 males, and these are rough numbers because at the time I wasn't keeping track of them. Almost to a person. When I made the job offer to a woman, she accepted it on the spot. Almost every single time. What's wrong with that? Strategy.
Well, the employer really doesn't have your best interest at heart.
The employer doesn't have your best interest at heart. Very true. What was my job when I was making a job offer to anyone? To get them at the lowest possible cost that I could. Because, as you all know, in education, our budgets leave much to be desired. They're always being cut. There's always competing projects that you want to fund. You only have a limited amount. And if you can get somebody for $10,000 less, then that's $10,000 you have to spend on something else. So very true. It's not the employer's job to try to get you to have the best job offer you can. In fact, a lot of times when I would be making an offer to a woman, just ask for more money, just ask for more money, but you can't say that. Yes?
I work in HR, and I think that is changing because I find when I make offers that the women are really coming forward.
Great.
And they want to negotiate. They ask is that the standing price, and if so, they still ask.
Well, when,
and you go back and ask.
what do you say when they ask you if that's the final offer? You say no, it's not? Or?
Well, if it's a final offer, to me, nothing's ever really final until you ask, because that's just the way the business goes. They always can find room. Sometimes they can find room for more. Sometimes they can't, but you always ask.
Right. Very true. That's another disadvantage of accepting a job offer on the spot is, do you really know if that's a fair offer? You may, and hopefully you've done your homework prior to that time and found out what other people doing the same types of jobs in the same type of geographical areas are making, but you might not have. You might not have done that because that's fairly time consuming and you weren't sure if you were going to get the job offer, so maybe you didn't do as much research as you should. So that's another reason why you never accept a job offer on the spot. Take time and do your research. Find out what other people are earning. If it's a public institution, that's all public information. And a lot of times places don't like to really give that information out, and sometimes you have to knock on more than one door, but it's public information you're entitled to know. Yes?
I didn't do it when I first came to my position, but I teach at a community college, and I could have done Freedom of Information Act and received everybody's salaries. And hindsight's 20/20. I wish I'd done it. Now I do it every year.
Very good. And we have someone at our college that asks for it every single year to ask for the salary information. And we have, actually, just on a side note, we have 2 public school systems on the shore, and lately all their salaries have been published in the paper because there's budget issues and things going on. And boy, that's created a hue and cry in the community, I'll tell you. And you know, how would you like to see your salary published on the front page of the paper? Most people don't like to.
Just across the river does that, and I remember the first time I saw that, it was kind of mind-boggling. Is it people's names and people
Yeah.
they
It does. I wouldn't like it, and they haven't asked for the college salaries yet, but I'm waiting because it's on the front page all the time. A lot of letters to the editor about that also. But again, don't be afraid to research. Ask people. Some people are very willing to share their salaries. The Chronicle of Higher Education, the Community College Times, they all had, in general, average salaries for different jobs based on geographic location and size of the institution. Because usually the larger the institution that you work at, the salaries tend to be higher than the smaller institutions. Can I share your story, Kim, or do you want to share your story? About
You share.
Oh.
I don't know the part you want to share.
I'll share it all. Kim happens to work at Eastern Shore Community College, and I will say she was one that when I offered her the position in January or December, whenever it was, she asked for more money. And I don't know, because you kind of apologize when you ask. You say, oh yeah, I'm really sorry, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's great, wonderful, and you got a little more. So, but we were chatting beforehand. I told her I was going to share that, and she mentioned the last place she had worked prior to coming to the college, and she negotiated real hard on that one because you knew you were going to get an insulting offer, is what she said. And she did get an insulting offer and got several $1,000s more. But the comment she made that I found so interesting was when she was hired at this position, and she was able to negotiate for a lot more money. They said, now don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone else what you're making. Keep that to yourself. Keep it confidential. That's exactly the problem that all of us face, is nobody likes to really share about what exactly they're making, so they don't. And then you have no idea sometimes what comparable salaries there are. So that's why you ask. That's why you say it's public information. I need to know. And then you can base your own counter offer on that. Yes?
Just to make a comment, having worked a lot in the private sector, for example, people are told in unique positions that you cannot share your salary, that you can be disciplined for sharing your salary. And they do discipline people.
Really? In private?
Yes. I don't know if anyone else has an experience with it. So it's a switch in the mind.
And part of the reason they do that is because they don't want you finding out that so-and-so makes this much more or this much less. Because, of course, that hurts morale when you find out. Well, I mean, after my own self, after a decade, and then I found out I'm making $17,000 less than everybody else, how did that make me feel? Not very good. Not very good at all. So that's why they don't want you sharing those things. Another mistake that women tend to make more often than men is when you do ask for money, you give reasons why you need more money. And the only reason should ever be, I'm worth it. And one of the women that I was interviewing for my research told me about, she was offered a dean's position, and they offered her, let's just say $50,000, I don't remember what it was. She said, well, I really need more money. I need about $55,000 because I have to move and it costs money and I have to find a new place and all of this. And they said, oh, all that's covered. We pay for your moving expenses, we pay to ship your things here, so $50,000. Now what does she say? Well, I was lying, I really did. I really want $55,000, and she painted herself in a corner because she gave a specific reason, not just a real specific reason why she needed more money. They countered that request, met it, without raising the base pay. And that gets to what you mentioned before. Your strategy should always be get the highest base pay that you can get. Add-ons and things are nice if you're doing special projects, and I'm not putting that down, but your strategy is always get the highest base pay you can, because in education, at least every place I've ever been, everybody gets the same percentage raise. So if you start off and you're below someone else and you both get the same percentage raise, the gap just widens and widens and widens. And it carries over into retirement also. Because your retirement pay is based on, well, usually your high 3 years or 5 years, whatever state you're in. And if your pay is less when you retire, then your retirement earnings for the rest of your life are going to be less than they could. So always, always try to increase your base pay. And again, the only reason you ask for more money is because you're worth it. Another problem that many women have is that they do take on additional duties without additional pay. Now this is a fine line, okay? So I do want to say that. Every time you're asked to do something extra, you can't always say you want more money. I guess you can, but that doesn't usually set well with whoever your supervisor is. But if you're asked to take on some extra duties that are very significant, and an example I always give is, say you're asked to chair a SACS self-study visit. You ask for more money. Someone leaves, and instead of filling the position, they divide the responsibilities. Has anybody ever had that happen to them before? And again, if it's significant increase in responsibilities, ask for a raise. I found that most men will ask for more money and most women will not. And one of the women I interviewed, I love the quote she said. She said, when they asked me to do extra things, it didn't even occur to me to ask for more money or to say I wouldn't do them. I'm a team player. You know, I pitched right in. They told me it was just going to be for a short period of time and it ended up being for about 4 years. And then she said her male colleague was asked to do the same, and she later found out that he had asked for additional monies to take on these responsibilities and was given additional monies to do so. She said it never occurred to him not to ask for more money. So that's something to keep in mind, yes.
If it is something even as big as chairing a self-study, it would be not I need temporary increase or additional pay, but just raise my base salary?
Mm-hmm. And you may not get it. And if they say, well, here you can have a temporary pay increase, great, and that's better than not getting one. But yes, you always ask for a raise in your base salary first. Another thing to keep in mind, because I've often heard people say to me, well, gee, in higher education they have all these salary scales, and we can't vary them. And we have the years that you've worked in such and such a job, and the degree you have, and here's where you are. Well, to me, after I finally learned these lessons, when I went to Mississippi, I was offered a job as dean of the college, and they quoted me a salary, and it really wasn't enough. Thank goodness, right? Part of it, oh yeah, that's fine. It really wasn't enough, and they said, well, gee, we have this salary scale, you're here, and you're here. And I said, well, then I can't come. So then I get a call a couple days later. It's like when you're buying a car and they run after you. Oh, no, come back. And they said, well, don't you have any other years of management experience? Because that was one of the columns, was years of management experience. I said, well, when I was going to college, I worked in a deli and I managed a high school student. Okay, fine, we'll take 44 years. And I'm thinking, okay, that's fine. And so they added 4 more years. They bumped the salary up about another $7,000 or so, and then they hired me. Well, that's not really the purpose of that salary scale, is years of relevant management experience. Now, come on, you know, working in a deli and supervising a high school student that worked about 10 hours a week, but that's what they did. So you need to just think about those things when you're talking with people, and don't always take that answer as gospel. Don't be afraid to ask. Someone mentioned in here that we didn't know how to negotiate, and I think that's a very interesting point, because I have a lot of degrees, and one of them's an MBA, Master's in Business Administration. Now, what other degree would you think would be appropriate to teach negotiation skills if not an MBA? And also my bachelor's degree is in Business Administration. That seems like a very good fit. Never mentioned in my bachelor's program, in my master's program, certainly never mentioned in my doctoral program about some of these skills or how to negotiate for yourself. Because if you can negotiate for yourself, that just improves your negotiation skills for your organization too. But they never teach you that, never even mentioned it. And I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if degree programs are changing and they do mention those things now, but it is never mentioned. We don't learn it, and we suffer for it in the end. Any comments about any of that? Anybody want to share anything else? Yes.
I was reflecting on the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and the interesting observation in that about men wanting to go in and bam, make a decision and move on. And forget about it, go on to the next thing. And this, just like in the sports game, you come together, you crash, you forget about it, no hard feelings. Women, very different. You want to talk your way through it, have a long discussion, don't want any hard feelings, want to be peacemakers, and if there's hurt feeling, it doesn't end there. The game is never ended. It continues, and each one is linked together. I thought that was a fascinating observation, and you take that into the context of a salary negotiation. The woman not wanting to create bad feeling because it will last after the interview. The feeling that if you negotiate hard, you build resentment, and you'll take that into the job. So I think there might be some natural differences.
Well, it gets back to someone mentioned self-worth too, because never think that you're being greedy either for asking for more money. And sometimes people feel, I'm not sure that I'm worth it, or gee, are they going to think that I'm difficult to get along with? What are they going to do? And the person making the offer, as you said from HR, almost expects that somebody's going to ask for more money. We're certainly not going to hold it against you, and we may not be able to give it to you either. But we're not going to say, gee, you asked for more money, we can't give it to you, I don't even want you here anymore. Absolutely not. We'll say, sorry, that's the top offer, and they'll give you a couple days to decide whether or not it's an offer you can accept. So that's very good points. Yes?
I have to smile because I think women are conditioned. And I think about my husband and our relationship, and I can say, I have no money, I need some lunch money. How about $5? And that is exactly what he will give me. So I'm trying to train myself. Because then he'll open up his wallet, and then there's a bunch of 20s in there, and I say, well, then why don't you just give me the $20? Because you asked for mine.
Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about leadership skills right now. And I want you to give me some input. Think about the best boss you've ever had in your entire career. And tell me some qualities that they had.
Expectations are very clear.
Clear expectations.
They listen.
Yeah.
Listen.
That's what I was going to say.
Listen.
They're trusting, and they're good at trying to mentor you to grow.
Trusting, and they mentor you to grow.
An advocate.
An advocate of you.
Absolutely.
An advocate of you. Yes.
They let you make mistakes without
Let you make mistakes and learn from your mistakes too.
I think it's not just the listening, but going beyond that and telling you that you're worth more than you think you are, and telling you what you need to is today that very often we sell ourselves short. And that we could, try different things that we're not even aware of ourselves that we can do.
So they value you, and they also
Yeah.
teach you to value yourself, or encourage you to value yourself. Great. Yes.
Believe in your abilities.
Believe in your abilities.
A leader versus manager.
Leader versus manager, and I think Barbara all read things about what it takes to really lead as opposed to just managing day-to-day operations. Very good.
Didn't sweat the small stuff.
Approachable. What did you?
Didn't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Very good. Yes.
Also acts as a partner and a collaborator.
Partner and a collaborator.
Very willing to share credit.
willing to share. I had a boss that took credit for everything. Didn't do anything. That's very frustrating. Maybe. Well, yeah, you'll have some people that will say that. Now, I usually get more input from this one. Think of the worst boss that you've ever had in your entire career, and tell me why.
Takes credit for all.
Takes credit for everything.
Poor communicator.
Poor communicator. That was yours, Kim? Poor communicator.
Hidden agenda.
Hidden agendas.
Doesn't listen and jumps to conclusions.
Doesn't listen, jumps to conclusions. Nuts. Yes. Dishonest.
Rude, disrespectful.
Rude and disrespectful. To everyone, or do you think just to subordinates?
Everyone.
Everyone. All right.
Everyone changes the expectations continuously.
Continually changing expectations. Teresa?
Has an inflated sense of self.
Not open to change.
Not open to change.
Doesn't respect her employees' time or effort.
Doesn't respect your time or your effort.
Last minute meetings, no agenda.
Place the gotcha game. You got to give pretty clear directions and then jumps on it. You don't go the way you think you're going the way they told you.
And they like to point out that you're wrong. Gotcha. Okay. Any others? Let me change my papers here. I want to actually share with you what I think is one of the best leadership books. And there's all kinds of leadership books. Just go to a bookstore and look at the leadership aisle, and there's literally thousands of them. So obviously, I guess no one has the answer, or that'd be the only book out there. Things do depend on your personality, your strengths, the organization that you're in. It's very true that there's good matches between organizational culture and the personality that comes in. But I want to share some skills that cross all organizations, so no matter where you work. And yes, you had your hand up.
I'm a reading teacher, so I find what people read, and one of the things I found is that women tend to buy most of the large majority of self-help books. Is it the same with leadership books?
I don't know.
I haven't seen it in there. They're in the self-help area, so I don't know if they're included or not.
I don't know. My guess would be that more males would buy them, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That may be just an assumption on this.
They don't have to do it.
That's true. Very true. Well, the leadership book that I really like is Colin Powell's leadership book, former Secretary of State. And I'm just going to share actually 9 points that he makes. I think it's 9. And talk a little bit about them. Not in a lot of detail, but the first sign of a great leader is being proactive. Okay? As Powell said, the slogan of the complacent person is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. This sentiment is often used as an excuse for inaction. And if you believe this statement, you are hoping or assuming that today's world will continue in the foreseeable future in predictable fashion. And we all know that's not true. And of course, it's changing even faster and faster and faster and faster all the time. So that's it. And as I think back on some bosses that I've had too, it is very frustrating when you have someone that only reacts. And they wait, the status quo, nothing changes, and all of a sudden there's a big issue or concern, and oh my God, we all have to get together and decide, come up with different policy, procedure, whatever it is. Always reactive, never looking in the future and seeing where it is you want to go and how to get there. And that's a real weakness of a leader. Actually, I wouldn't even call that person a leader. It would be more manager, as you were saying over there. So remember that. Be proactive. Number 2, keep learning. And us in education should always keep learning. And I do have to, have to say, I was very surprised when I first started working in education, because I like to learn and I always keep learning, and I'm teaching an online class now, and I take online courses and just attend conferences. You're here today, so obviously you want to learn. I was very surprised when I first started my first job in education, and some people didn't want to learn anything new. And yet, what are we selling to our students? The importance of learning new skills and the importance of learning this discipline, the importance of learning technology, and yet we have people who work in educational organizations. Now, I don't want to learn that. It's fine the way I've been doing things all this time, and I just don't understand that. I don't understand why you're working in education and working with students and telling them how important learning is, and yet you don't want to. But anyway, that's just a pet peeve of mine. So keep learning. Never stop. Every one of our jobs could become obsolete, and maybe some of them will. I don't know. If they do, you need to have another skill set on hand so that you can move right into something else. Take on new responsibilities, reinvent your job before someone else comes in and reinvents it for you. Number 3 is be flexible. Don't be one of those people who thinks you're right all the time. You're not. I'm not. Be willing to learn from others. Be willing to listen to input. Of course you think you're right. I mean, obviously you're not going to present some type of plan of action or project that you think is wrong. You think you're right, but there may be some things you did not consider when you were developing that plan. You always have to have input from people and be willing to change your mind. It might not be exactly what you think it is. It might not work the way you think it is. And always keep people that are on the front lines involved in whatever plan it is. They're the people that work daily, the people that come in, and they know what things you need to think about. So do be flexible. It's not weak, it's being a leader. And number 4, not everyone will like you. A lot of people won't like you. And if everybody does like you, you're probably not making any important decisions. You're probably just being nice and friendly to people. And this was hard for me. This really was hard for me. I want people to like me, as I'm sure most of you in this room do. There are some people that don't care if anybody likes them, but most people want to be liked. And when you really try your hardest and you're making the best decision that you can, and then you have people that are upset and think you're nuts, as somebody said over there, or whatever it might be, it feels really bad. And the first few times, it's a little bit hard to adjust to. But then when you realize that's human nature, that's what happens. One of the things I do at the college is once a year, I give everyone at the college, every full-time employee, an evaluation of me, anonymous evaluation of me. And you just have to have a thick skin sometimes. I will tell you the overwhelming majority of the evaluations are positive, so that makes you feel good. But it's like the very first time I taught a class, and there were about 24 people in the class, and I got one horrible evaluation and 23 excellent ones. What one did I think about all the time? Gosh, who was this person? Well, that's what you first say. Who was this person? You try to figure out who it was that said this terrible thing about you. But not everyone's going to like you. And if you try to avoid difficult choices, as Powell says, by not getting anyone mad, you ensure that the only people you wind up angering are the most creative and productive people on your staff, because they will see that you are unwilling to make the tough choice. Number 5, I think this is a real interesting one, and it's one you really need to keep in mind. The day that the employees stop bringing you their problems is the day that you have stopped leading them. A leader has to be available to people to voice their concerns. That doesn't mean every minute of every day somebody can walk in, because obviously they're doing other things, but they have to make time and be available. Why is that such a problem? Well, if people stop bringing you their problems, there's 2 reasons why. Either they don't think you can do a darn thing about it, so they don't have any confidence in you, or they've concluded that you don't care. So why should they bother wasting their time? Both are very dangerous feelings from the people that report to you.
I really look at Lily. I think that's extremely important. In the most dysfunctional place I've ever worked, that's what happened. And it also is terrible from around, because you feel like there's just this barrier instead of a manager or a leader, as it's supposed to be there. It's just this huge barrier to anything, because it's killed messenger, and you're whatever. You are wrong for bringing your concern, even if you bring a couple of
a good point you make about solutions, because it is good to have some solutions. If you have a problem and you come in and you have some solutions, that's always a wonderful feeling for the leader to have. So that is a good point. I had another hand.
There's a third thing, that is sometimes when you said you come with a problem or a solution to the problem, it's used against you or and they'll take credit. Or give it to somebody else or make them mad.
And that is a shame. That is a shame if it's used against you, because no organization is perfect. There's always going to be issues and concerns, and you have to deal with them, and you shouldn't shoot the messenger or blame someone for coming forward with them. But there is a lot of layers of bureaucracy and often too many barriers, as you said. And if the CEO is too busy with other things, after all, other things are more important than human resources. Some bosses think that asking for help is a weakness, and that you hold that against you. It's a little bit different twist on what you said. And a lot of people pretend they don't need help, and then the organization suffers from that, because they do. They do need help. Number 6, don't be afraid to challenge the status quo and take risks. And you mentioned earlier over here in this corner about a boss not holding it against you if you make a mistake, because you have to take risks. If you want to do something different, better, it involves implementing change in your organization. And when you do that, it might not work. I've tried a lot of things that didn't work over the years. That's okay. If you don't try them, you'll never know. And certainly many things do work, and many ideas you have do work. So don't be afraid to take risks. Leadership does not mean blind obedience. If you have a yes man or a yes woman working for you, one of you is redundant. So it doesn't help to have someone. And I've had people that work for me that always wanted to agree with what you said, and that's just not helpful or productive in any way. And if you are asked why you recommend a certain procedure, please never say, because we've always done it that way. Now tell me no one in here has ever said that, I hope. If you have, please don't ever say it again. There might be good reasons why you've always done it that way, but don't say the reason is because we've always done it that way. It's other reasons why it might work, and that doesn't get you anywhere. If you use that phrase, it does not get you anywhere. Number 7, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, and I think that's very true. There are several people in your organization who thinks it's their job to say no. We have some at the Eastern Shore. And you have to try to find your way around that sometimes, because you're there to help the students, and you're there to get the students to what they want to achieve. Good leaders believe that if they haven't been explicitly told no, then they can go ahead and do it. And again, you have to use common sense for this particular point, but there are people who think it's their job to say no. Now I come to the 2 most important ones in my mind, and also Secretary Powell's. Number 8, be positive. Please be positive. What kind of person do you want to work for? What type of people do you want to work with? Do you want to work with someone that comes in every day and talks about how horrible their day was, how horrible the department is, how horrible the organization is, how horrible their kids are, their spouse, whatever it might be? Is that the kind of people you want to work with? Most people don't. Again, there's probably some that like this negative vibe going around, but be positive. The far-reaching impact of a leader's enthusiasm and optimism is amazing. Powell says, spare me the grim litany of the realist and give me the unrealistic aspirations of the optimist any day. Perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. And again, I'm not saying there aren't negative things that would happen. Certainly there are. Be a positive person. It makes a huge difference. And number 9 is have fun. Not every minute of every day of your work day is going to be fun. But in general, your job should be fun. And if it's not, then maybe it's not the right match. I would hate to think of going to a job that I dislike. In fact, I had one job in my career that I really disliked, and it had to do with my supervisor, that they moved into this position. He was horrible. We had 7 administrators, 6 of us left within a year. It was bad, horrible. And I had to make a decision, because I loved my job there, but the atmosphere had changed so much in the environment that I couldn't deal with it anymore. And my decision was, what do? Do I try to rough it through and put up with this, or do I look around? And I looked around, and it was the best move I ever made, even though I was scared to death to do it. So sometimes you have real tough choices to make, but if you're not having fun in your job for whatever reason, whether it's the boss or it's your coworker or it's just the job itself that you do not enjoy, you need to seriously think about what you want to do. Any comments on that? Yes, back there.
Which, not as a leader, I'm not in a leadership position, I mean, I try to emulate some of these things, but I think sometimes when we're the person who's bringing a problem, or the person who's suggesting another way, people are, it's perceived as being negative. And I think that that's a little fine line. I mean, it's hard to go in and say, it's hard to have a happy face when there's huge issues that need to be addressed. And I know what you're saying. Sometimes people who are not good leaders see people who bring problems in as being negative. You don't like change, or whatever whatever the word.
Concern for this organization. There might be a fine line if that person doesn't take well to those types of situations. Yes.
Starting point number 9, have fun. I think a lot of women get comfortable in their positions. That's why they don't want to try to apply for other positions or leave the organization and go somewhere else because they feel as though they're not worth anything else.
That's a real good point that she made, and if you didn't hear it, she said a lot of women seem to get very comfortable in their positions, and that may be why they don't apply for a job at a higher level or a job at another institution. And that was the case with me for that situation I mentioned to you. I was very comfortable there. I loved that place, and it was close to home, and it was just nice. And if that wouldn't have happened, I'd still be there. I know it. I know it. I know I would still be there. And that's a very good point. One of the things I'm going to talk about, I'll mention it right now since you did this, talk about it in more detail. Well, let me go through this. What job do you aspire to? Does anyone mind sharing a job that they aspire to?
I have.
You have it? Very good, kid.
But that's one of those things too, because I was looking around and talking to Teresa. I want to be a teacher. I don't want to move up in the ranks. Sometimes I have colleagues, who do aspire to, they call it moving up in the ranks, Maybe it is, I don't know. But I don't know, sometimes I have a little bit of an issue with that, feeling like maybe I'm not professional or ambitious enough or whatever, or reaching my, but it's what I want to be. It's what I want to do. I don't want to do anything else.
That's great. Then you're in a wonderful position. You are. And I know what you're saying. Now you might feel like, gosh, what's wrong with me? Here's all these people wanting to do all this stuff, but okay, we have someone that loves what they do. Doesn't want to go. Yes.
Is it easier to move, say, up in a position from faculty member to leave the school, or
Yes.
within the school?
Actually, yes, and that was one of the points I was going to talk about. Since no one will share what their aspiration is right now, we'll get back to that, though. I'm not letting you off the hook. One of the things, a tip for you, for those of you that do want to move up the ladder, whether it be administrative ladder or whatever it might be, but you mentioned specifically faculty wanting to get into a dean's position. I'll also throw in, I had a terrific assistant, I do now too, but I had a terrific assistant at another college I worked at that wanted to move into administration. Very often you have to change organizations or be willing to relocate totally out of the state or out of the region. Now why, you might ask, and I'm sure most of you are saying, yeah, that might be. Let me use my assistant as an example. Everybody saw her as a secretary. She had been in that job for probably 15 years, and she had gone on and gotten her bachelor's and her master's degree, and had applied for a few positions at that particular institution because she wanted to stay there. That's where her kids were in school, and she certainly was capable of it. They saw her as a secretary, and they would never see her as anything else, no matter what she did there. Very small institution. Not a lot of people did move up the ladders. There were very seldom openings, and they saw her. They pigeonholed her, and that's where she will be forever there. She's still there, by the way. Sometimes you have too much baggage at the institution that you're at, that an external applicant coming in, they have as many disadvantages or weaknesses as you do, but nobody knows about them, or even with the reference checking, you don't find out as much about them as someone who's been there day in and day out for years on end. Everybody knows you had an argument with so-and-so. Everybody knows you opposed whatever it might be that you opposed. You've made, perhaps, enemies might be too strong of a word, but there's people that do not respect you, or whatever the situation might be. Internal candidates have much more baggage than external ones, and sometimes that will prevent you from moving up at the institution you're at.
If I could just add an asterisk, community college teaching is where I wanted to be, and this is the 5th school I've been in 20 years. So I will say that I had to move from place to place on the shore and put in some
To get the
time
job.
with a long commute in order to get the one that I wanted, which was here. So I actually.
Well, talk to me about what I just said. Have any of you noticed any of those two situations as far as either being pigeonholed and not really looked at, as far as being able to move up, or as having too much baggage? Some of you, I'm sure, have been on search committees. Have you heard comments like that made from other members of the search committee? Or do you think there's other reasons why you have to sometimes move? Oh, let me give you another reason why you might have to move. We talked about money at the beginning. Sometimes the only way that you'll get a good raise is to go somewhere else. And that I've done a few different times. And one time I went from $40,000 to $70,000. From one job to another, $40,000 to $70,000. You know how long it would take me to get to 70 at the place I was at? Probably would have been when I retired, maybe. Yes?
I teach a leadership class at the University of Virginia 3 times a year. And as part of the class, I have people lay out what their history was in their jobs. And each time they had to move out to move up. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting when they start doing their own path and sharing it with each other, how many steps there really are where you had to move out to go up and couldn't move up. And I think that's more the norm than the exception, unfortunately. Even within the BCCS, when we limit what we will allow people to do to 15%, when the previous person in that position coming from the outside could get 20%, 25% more. Those are challenges.
That's right. They really are. And I don't want to paint a bleak picture, but it is very hard. Once you've accepted a salary, you're there, you're in the job, you've agreed to it, you've signed your contract, and the years go by. It's hard. It's hard in higher education to go in and try to plead your case and tell why you need a huge raise. It doesn't happen very often. Now, one school I was at, all of the female faculty members filed a lawsuit because they were being paid less than their male counterparts, and they won. But I mean, without such drastic measures, they tried to make their case and get the administration to boost their salaries, and they did not succeed. So they had to go to that length. But it's very hard to go in and say, hey, yeah, I know that I accepted this and everybody gets a 4% raise, but I think that I should get a 14% raise. It doesn't happen very often. You have to leave a lot of times to get that 20, 25% raise that you mentioned.
But can't it be a drawback sometimes as well to constantly be changing jobs? Because I also work in human resources, and I will listen to the search committee say, oh, look, this person's changed a job every 2 years, and so they kind of get a negative feel for that candidate, you know. So don't you be real careful on how often you're going to be changing jobs?
I would say yes, but I also say that's changing.
Right.
And if some other HR people want to chime in, or people on search committees. And it has a lot to do with also the different values that the next generation, well, I say the next, the one coming up behind the baby boomers. And you've probably read some statistics, which I still find hard to believe, that they say they'll have 20 different jobs in their career. But that's what they say. And they will, boy, every year or two, they just move out, move up, or move on. I don't know where they're going, but they're going somewhere else. And so I do think that's changing, but who's on the search
Right,
committee?
that's-
If you have a bunch of baby boomers, like some of us in here, yeah, we're gonna say, gee, what was wrong with that person? Why did they move ahead? But that perception is changing a bit. But you do have to be careful, you know, how much is too much. People will tend to wonder if you only stay 2 years everywhere you've been, why that is. So you do need a couple jobs where you've stayed longer, but that's a good point.
We tend to not look for different jobs. We wouldn't buy the first car we see, but we will take the first job we see. And we tend to not want to move. I'm saying, well, so I moved from Seattle, Texas, and here to Germany and back. But I'm not the norm.
No.
I mean, my family knows. What, if you lost your mind? You know, but they tend to just live right where they are, stay where they are, whether it's the kids' excuse, whether it's whatever. You know, you don't upset the apple cart. So you stay right where you are. And they don't look beyond the four walls.
And a point you made right when you started talking is a good one too. Be careful of the job you accept. Make sure it's the one you really want. And that gets back to moving a lot too, because you might take a job and then all of a sudden, oh, there's one that I really wanted opened up. So then you apply for that one, and you just have to watch what you do. Don't just take it because they liked you enough to offer it to you and think that, okay, well, this is good. This is what I want to do. Very good points. And I'm married, by the way, and my husband has trailed me from Ohio to Mississippi to Virginia, and I have a wonderful husband, so I appreciate that, because that's not always the case either. That is not always the case, and sometimes people have to make a choice based on that. And that's true for males too. I mean, there would be some spouses that would not want to move with their husband, but I think it tends to be a little bit more common as far as the male spouse moving. So you have to watch that too. Some other comments?
I just have a comment, not quite related to this, but
Okay.
I think, and this happened to me before, but other women and other people I've spoken to, they're afraid to go for like a manager job or another. And I worked in the private sector in other areas. I'm a nurse, because they're afraid. Well, that's as high as I can go, and it probably really is. And what if I don't do well? It's really hard to visualize themselves. If they don't do well, they hate it, and just stepping back down. And I think I don't know if that's a barrier to us wanting to reach a higher position up in an organization. I mean, I don't know if anybody else is that, or that.
Sometimes it's our perception, too, of what that higher level position is. And a position is sometimes what we bring to it and make of it when we're in it. I was a P14 running an institute when I joined AAW 20-some years ago, a long time ago. And the president sat next to me at the institute I was putting on and asked me what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I thought, oh, he didn't like that I brought in students who were using drugs to talk to everybody else, so he's going to take my job away. And I thought I'd turn that thing off. I'm obviously technologically challenged. And he said, no, I think you need to go back to school. I said, I can't. I have 2 babies, little babies. My husband's in California on a job. We can barely make ends meet. And the last thing I can afford to do is go back to school. He said, but you have to. And I said, why? He said, because someday you need to be a college president. I was a P14. And I said, whatever for? I said, I absolutely hate everything about a college president. He said, what do you know about it? I said, they're paper pushers, people pushers, and politicians. And I said, and that's not me. And he said, no. He said, it's not. He said, you're a people person. We've already got too many of the other kind. And, even today, you asked that question, what do you want to be next? I went through the FLI at AACC 4 years ago, at ACE 5 years ago, and I am happy doing what I'm doing. And I also sometimes think I want to sometimes I think I want to write more books. And I really don't know. Can the answer be, I still haven't decided what I want to be when I grow up?
Yes.
And I'm having too much fun doing what I'm doing.
And that seems like a terrific place to be in, as long as you're having fun doing what you're doing. Absolutely. Is that why no one answered me in here? Everybody's happy with what they're doing?
I so much agree with that. I think one of the key things is to see there are opportunities out there and try them, because I've been an acting dean twice and kind of enjoyed it in a kind of masochistic way. But when the chips were down at the end of my second year of the second year term, I decided that what I really wanted to do was teach. So it kind of reaffirmed that. I just missed the classroom so much. So I'm kind of happy with what I'm doing, but I am looking forward to retiring, to get rid of all the committees, and then be able to still teach the art class now and again, and have time to write and do all the fun things that comes with my real profession, which is history.
Well, that's a good strategy. If you can possibly, if you think you are aspiring to administration, whatever it might be, if there's the availability of an acting position, which a lot of times there's not. Test the waters. You did it and said that was all right, but it's not really what I want to do. I'm going to get back to it. A couple other points I want to make, as I know some of you have to get going. When you do decide what job you want to aspire to, but everybody in here likes their job, so I know you're probably tired of hearing the word networking, but it works. You need a network. You need to talk with the supervisor, talk with the boss, and I was terrible at this when I first got my dean's position, and that was at Cuyahoga Community College, which is a huge place, about 23,000 students every semester and 11 locations, and now they're about close to 30,000 students. And the president would come and visit once a year, which is not a good strategy, by the way. You need to be out there more. But anyway, I was never one to say, hi, how are you? I'm Cheryle, I'm the dean of business. And I was in the background, didn't make myself known. Well, if I'm not going to make myself known, who's going to make me known to her? No one. No one's going to. So I learned that you do have to put yourself out. If some people may think you're kissing up or something like that, and certainly you need to keep it within bounds, but you need to make yourself known. You need to say, hi, this is what I do. Here's a terrific project I just initiated that went so well. You need to do that. You have to be a self-promoter because no one else is going to do it for you. So hobnob with the big wigs, as they say. While the men are playing golf, you may want to be playing golf too, instead of being the one back at the office doing all the work. You do need to make those connections. You really do. All of us are guilty of that, because a lot of times people say, well, it's who you know. That's why you got the job. It's who you know. It's not what you know. We're all guilty of that. When we serve on search committees, or when you know the job opening at the place you're working at, and you think, oh, my friend so-and-so might be a good match for that. Or you relate to someone on an applicant. When you're on the search committee, you relate to them because they're more like you. And that's research has proven that. So that's human nature. That's the facts of life. You need to make yourself known. Do get involved in college committees, whether you like them or not. Volunteer to be on some things, and especially ones that are maybe more noticeable than others. And again, this is if you're thinking about moving up the ladder. Present at conferences. When you go to whatever faculty conference it might be, or if it might be the staff, the ESCC, present. Yes?
I'm on several committees, and I notice the same faces typically, and there's far more females on these committees than there are males. So at least the community college where I teach, I'm not sure that's the best strategy.
Well, that's a good point. Women do tend to volunteer more than the males, but if you do a good job on it, and it's a committee that you really believe in and think that they're doing good work, I should have made that point too. It has to be something that you're interested in, that you feel you can really make a difference. But yes, you're right. There are a lot of female faces on a lot of committees. Now at our college, everybody's on a committee. Every single person. All classified staff. Now we're small, so you can do that, but every single person's on at least one committee. Again, present at conferences. Don't nitpick. Be a big picture person. Certainly small things go wrong. don't focus on those and agonize over those. You have to be a big picture person. And then I talked about, are you willing to relocate or change institutions? Extremely important decision that you have to make that could make a huge difference on where you go. If I wasn't willing to relocate, I know I wouldn't be a college president right now. Because the last institution I was at, where I was the vice president, that president's going to be there an awful long time. So what's your choice? You stay there as a vice president, and 20 years later, they finally retire, and then everybody says, God, she's been around here forever. We don't want her. She has way too much baggage. We're not going to hire her. So you might have to make that tough decision. Know your goals and what you have to do to get there. And that's why I asked if anybody wanted to share what their aspirations were. You need to know how to get there, whether it's doctoral degree is required. Okay, is it required? Then that's what you have to do. You have to go get one. Is it not required? It's a master's degree, a bachelor's degree. For college presidents now, for example, this was a skill I did not have before I went to Eastern Shore Community College. Fundraising is now a huge skill that you have to have. And I'm learning on the job, and we're being successful, but those are the types of things you need to identify. What do you have to be able to do, and then you try to get that experience prior to applying for the job. Any other comments? Things people want to? Yes.
There's great difficulty finding qualified people to fill positions in community colleges because the competition for knowledge people is so great, and so many places pay so much more than the community colleges do. So many are starting to develop succession planning strategies. And Thomas Nelson had a graduate student as a project develop an idea plan a couple of years ago that they took up to the VCCS, and they thought it was a great idea. I feel like we ought to dig that out and look at it, but parts of it were helping people to relook at their own job descriptions and make sure they're accurate in view of what they're actually doing. And then make sure every leadership position has an accurate job description so that people can look at it and see specifically what it requires. And then as part of your employee evaluation, where you do your development plan with your supervisor, be able to discuss what you'd like to grow to if that position becomes available, find out what that division needs and where the Venn diagram overlaps into that area where your development dollars can go into those common areas. And then coaching skills for supervisors to help people develop their development plans, and then encouraging everybody to apply for positions they're interested in as part of the grow your own idea behind succession planning.
Yeah.
I would love to see the VCCS buy into something like that.
A lot more institutions are going into succession planning. You're right, that's kind of a new, and there's some disadvantages to it too, but there are some certainly.
You want fresh blood, fresh ideas.
Right. Other comments?
I have one last.
Yes.
Debbie DeCroce taught a course on community college with William and Mary, and she said it's lonely at the top. Who do you confide in to?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And, a teacher she had, instructor she had as a community college president, and of course she took, said it's lonely at the top, and who do I confide in? I don't confide in anyone at Eastern Shore Community College. And sorry guys, but you can't.
Correct.
Because everything that you, well, as you can imagine, a lot of what I deal with is personnel things. Every supervisor deals with personnel issues, and it's the most difficult part of the job. But that will be everywhere you're at. It doesn't matter. Wherever you're at, there's always personnel issues. And so you have to keep all of that confidential. You cannot share any of that, even though it's hard not to, because sometimes you want to bounce an idea off someone or just get it off your chest. Oh God, you know what so-and-so did today. But you can't. You can't do that. And so I do have another fellow community college president in Virginia that we just hit it off as soon as we met, and we've become fast friends. And I will call him and ask him some things if I need advice, and he does the same with me. And I have a couple other colleagues that are presidents in other states who, of course, face some of the same situations you have. So that's who my confidence on.
Good job. And how do you de-stress? What else do you
I don't have a problem with that.
Good.
I don't. I can leave the job at the job. I can leave the job at the job. I'm not a workaholic, never have been. And I think that's an important point, too. You have to have a balance in life. Life is not all work, no matter what job that you have. You need to go home and walk the dogs and spend time with your husband and whatever it is you do. And I've never had a problem leaving the job at work. So I guess I'm lucky.
Well, I've enjoyed it today. It's been great.
Well, thank you, and I wish all of you success on whatever it is that you want to achieve, whether it's you're fine where you're at and love the job you're doing, or if it's yes, you want to eventually look at other opportunities. I wish you all success, and if there's anything I can do to help you, or you ever want to call and talk about things, please do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thompson-Stacey. This is just a little something to say thank you. And President Charles Taylor stopped by to say thank you for coming.
Good.
And that he supports the AAWCC wholeheartedly.
Great.
And that if you have a chance, you can say hi to us.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay,
I will
thank
do
you so
so.
much for your wisdom and your experience and all your information on negotiating tips and leadership. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, we do have information if you'd like to join and become a member of the AAWCC. We have application forms over here. And we still have some refreshments in the back. And Crystal has the door prizes. She should be here any minute. So we don't have those yet. So if you just network, talk to each other, look at the information we have. She'll be here shortly and we'll have the drawing. I apologize. Thank you.